The Nile flowed silently, its waters hiding a dark secret. Two sacks bobbed near the riverbank in Sohag. A fisherman casting his net spotted them. The sun was just beginning to set, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. The air was thick with the scent of the river and the distant sounds of the bustling town. The fisherman, a man named Ahmed, had been fishing these waters for years, but he had never seen anything like this before. His instincts told him something was terribly wrong.
His heart pounded in his chest. Something was wrong. He cautiously approached the sacks, his hand trembling as he reached out. The stench of decay hit him. He recoiled in horror. Inside the sacks, he found them. Two bodies, bound and lifeless. Ahmed's mind raced as he tried to comprehend the scene before him. The bodies were tightly bound with coarse rope, their faces obscured by the burlap. He could see that they had been there for some time, the waterlogged sacks barely holding together. The sight was almost too much to bear, but he knew he had to act. He stumbled back to his boat, his hands shaking as he fumbled for his radio. He called for help, his voice barely more than a whisper. The authorities arrived quickly, their faces grim as they surveyed the scene. They carefully removed the sacks from the water, revealing the full extent of the horror within. The bodies were those of a man and a woman, both showing signs of a violent struggle. The investigation that followed would uncover a web of deceit and betrayal, leading to a shocking conclusion. But for Ahmed, the memory of that day would haunt him forever. The image of the sacks bobbing in the water, the smell of decay, and the feeling of dread would stay with him. A constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface.
News spread like wildfire through the village. Two bodies found in the Nile. People gathered at the riverbank, their faces etched with fear and curiosity. Who were these victims? What cruel fate had befallen them? The police arrived, their faces grim. This was no accident. This was murder. The investigation began, a race against time to bring the perpetrators to justice. The bodies were taken to the morgue. The medical examiner carefully examined them, searching for clues. The victims were identified as Ibtisam and her young daughter, Hannah. They had been strangled. The community was in shock. Ibtisam and Hannah were known for their kindness and warmth. Who would want them dead?
The police dug deeper, piecing together the puzzle.
Ibtisam was a young widow, struggling to raise Hannah alone. Life had been difficult since her husband's death, but she faced each day with quiet strength. Ibtisam had always been a resilient woman, but the loss of her husband had tested her in ways she never imagined. She had to navigate the complexities of grief while ensuring that Hannah felt loved and secure. Every morning she would wake up early to prepare breakfast, making sure Hannah started her day with a smile. Hannah, a bright and cheerful child, was the apple of her mother's eye. Her laughter filled their small home with warmth, and her curiosity about the world was boundless. They were inseparable, their love for each other a beacon of hope in their lives. Ibtisam often found solace in the simple moments they shared, like reading bedtime stories or taking evening walks in the park. The thought of anyone harming them was unbearable. Ibtisam's protective instincts were fierce, and she would do anything to keep Hannah safe. She often stayed up late, planning for their future, determined to provide Hannah with the best life possible despite the challenges they faced. Their bond was unbreakable, forged through shared experiences and mutual support. Ibtisam knew that as long as they had each other, they could overcome any obstacle. Their journey was not just about survival, but about finding joy and meaning in the little things. Together they created a world where love and hope thrived, a testament to the strength of their bond.
Silent reflection, imagining her voice.
The village seemed idyllic, a place where everyone knew each other, but beneath the surface, secrets simmered. The police began interviewing Ibtisam's neighbors, hoping to uncover any clues about her life and any potential enemies. Police investigator we discovered that Ibtisam had confided in a close friend about a man she had recently met. He was charming and attentive, but something about him seemed off. One neighbor, a quiet woman named Fatima, seemed unusually nervous when questioned. She hesitated, her eyes darting around as if afraid to speak. The police sensed she knew more than she was letting on. Fatima had always been a reserved individual, keeping to herself and rarely engaging in neighborhood gossip. Her sudden nervousness was out of character, raising red flags for the investigators. They pressed her gently, trying to coax out the truth without causing her to shut down completely. The room was tense, the air thick with anticipation as everyone waited for her to speak. Ikrami under pressure, Fatima broke down. She revealed a shocking secret that she had been having an affair with Ibtisam's new lover. He had promised her the world, claiming he would leave Ibtisam for her. Fatima's confession was like a bombshell, sending shockwaves through the room. She described how their clandestine meetings had started innocently enough, with casual conversations that gradually turned into something more. The man, charming and persuasive, had convinced her that he was unhappy in his current relationship and that she was the one he truly loved. He painted vivid pictures of a future together, filled with promises of love and happiness. Fatima, lonely and vulnerable, had fallen for his words, believing that he would indeed leave Ibtisam for her. But as time went on, she began to realize that his promises were empty, and she was just a pawn in his game. The guilt and fear of being discovered had been eating away at her, and now, under the intense scrutiny of the police, she could no longer keep the secret. Her revelation added a new layer of complexity to the investigation, as the police now had to consider the possibility of a love triangle gone wrong. The dynamics between the three individuals were murky, and the motives behind their actions were even more so. Fatima's confession was just the beginning, and the police knew they had to dig deeper to uncover the full truth. Fatima's revelation was a turning point in the investigation.
The police now had a suspect, Ibtisam's lover.
They discovered his name was Gamal. He had a history of deceit and violence.
He had been using Fatima just as he had been using Ibtisam.
His motive became clear. He wanted Ibtisam out of the picture so he could be with Fatima without consequence. The police tracked Gamal down.
He initially denied any involvement in Ibtisam and Hana's deaths.
But the evidence against him was overwhelming.
Confronted with Fatima's testimony and the damning evidence, he finally confessed.
He admitted to luring Ibtisam and Hana to the riverbank where he brutally murdered them, hoping to hide his crime in the depths of the Nile. Gamal's trial was swift. The evidence was undeniable, his betrayal unforgivable. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Justice had been served, but it could not bring back Ibtisam and Hana. The village was left reeling, the idyllic image shattered by the shadow of such a horrific crime. The Nile continued to flow, its waters now a constant reminder of the tragedy. Ibtisam and Hana's deaths served as a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface, even in the most peaceful of places. The village learned a bitter lesson about trust, betrayal, and the devastating consequences of unchecked desire.